Hi everyone, my name is Anita Moore and I'm a decorative painter. And today I'm going to share with you a few of my projects that's going to be at a convention. It's called Art Waves and it's in Alberta, but it'll all be done online through Zoom classes due to COVID. And the first class that I'm going to be teaching will be called Happy Coneflowers. So you're going to learn wood grain background technique, the stenciling and the coneflowers. And then I have here, it's a rose and it's on a canvas and it'd be like this. So you take it apart and you do a little frame out of it. It's really fun class. You did enjoy that one. And then I have a little Jolly Santa. It's a little tag. Okay, and that one there is in our class. So I'll have all the links down below. If you're interested, the registration is now open and it's from November 3rd to November 7th. So there's beautiful artists, beautiful designs you can all choose from. And I hope you can join us. So right now I'm going to do a YouTube video on a serving board. And it's called Jolly Santa. So looking forward to teaching this. So let's get started, okay? I'm gonna put my camera down. So let me just change. Okay, so I have here, it's a serving board. So it's out of slate and you can take this out. And then you can glue it in afterwards. So I'm just gonna take this out so that you can all see. Okay, and I'm going to be using Decor Americana paint today. I'm also going to be using some black gold dynasty brushes. Okay. So I applied a multi-purpose sealer on it. I really let it dry. And then it's a little glare there. And then I traced on my transfer with the tracing paper and white graphite paper. Okay, so we're going to start with the little Santa's face. I base coated the face with white peach. Okay, that's an older bottle. It's white peach, and we're going to float the top of the face, the nose, and the cheek area with coral cloud. I have this e-packet on my website if anyone is interested in following with me. So I'm going to put some on my palette. I'll push my little palette here. And I'm going to be using a shader brush for the step. If you feel more comfortable using an angle, you can. I usually use an angle, but I want to show you the floating this time with all shaders. So I'm going to load my brush here with the tip, and I'm going to a little bit more. I'm going to go back and forth to fully load the brush. Okay, and we're going to go on underneath the bangs here, or the hairline, and you can walk it out to just so it's not like a harsh line. I'm going to float along the cheeks. Here, a little bit more here. Okay, and then I'm going to float like the bottom of his nose. Okay, it's really bright. I don't know if you can see that good. Okay, I'm going to float the bottom of his nose. Okay, and you can always take a mop brush to soften the floats. So you just pounce a little bit on it. So we're going to let that dry and we're going to darken the cheeks. Okay. So now while that dries, I'm going to move back and forth through the little steps here. So I'm going to float the hat and the body. And the hat and the body is base coated with Tuscan red. And before I do my float, I want to add a little bit of Hot Shot Fury Red. They're not called Decor neons. They're not Hot Shots anymore, but it's the same paint. So what I do is I put some on my palette. You only need a little bit. I'm going to take my round brush. So it's a number 5 round brush. I'm going to wet it. And all I'm going to do is just load my bristle. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is dab on the center area. If I have too much, let me just take a little bit off here. Oops. And then I'm going to put some on his body. Just dab. A little bit more here. Okay, so that'll take a while to dry. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and do his face. So I'm going to use burnt sienna here to float his cheeks and the bottom of his nose. I'm going to use the same shader brush, which was number, got already, number 6, okay? So I'm going to wet it. Okay, I'm going to always have my little mop brush handy in case I need to use it. So I start from the edge here and to the nose. And then what you're going to do is just wipe off a little bit along the nose, the harsh end. Just tap it to soften the cheeks. Okay, and then right here, same thing. I add a little wider to the edge there. Just pounce on it just to soften it up. And then I'm going to make this a little wider for the nose. Okay, so it's almost like doing a C stroke. Okay, and then you're going to wipe that little harsh line there and just pounce on it lightly. Okay, and then we'll go back and add a little highlight on his nose. Okay, so I think I might have to dry my little Santa here so that we can move on to the step. Put this in. Okay, let's dry this up. Doesn't reach. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna use deep burgundy to shade along the top of the brim and along this star here. Use whatever brush you feel comfortable with for the size for shading. And I like using Decor extender, drawing time extender medium, only because your floating will go a long ways. So what I usually do is I have my little container here and I have a puddle of extender in here. So I dip my brush in it and I just dab it on a little paper and then I load my brush with this deep burgundy. And then just, so instead of using water, I use the extender. Okay, so let's just float along here. And we can make it darker if needed. Okay, so here I'm gonna float right here. And if you get some in the cookie, just take your little clean edge and wipe it off. A little bit more here. So we can go back and darken this a little bit more when it dries. Okay. So now let's add a highlight to his little nose. So I'm just going to wipe some of this red that I got on my cookie here. There. Okay, so for the highlight, I used warm white. Okay, again, I'm going to load my brush with extender. Okay, so it's a C stroke on top of his nose. Okay. See how it just adds a little touch. We can go back and brighten that once it dries, just to make it a little bit brighter. Okay, I want to dry this again just to darken my float for the Santa here. I have to plug this into the other side of me so that I can reach a little bit more. 1 second. There, that's better. Okay, so let's just darken that up. Again, with deep burgundy, I want to make this a little darker. There we go. It's okay if you get some on the beard, it's going to be floated over top of it. Okay. There. Let me bring this up. Okay, so let's go back and dry this up, and we're going to add another highlight on the nose. Okay. It's a little harsh. I'm trying to make it as round as I could. Let me take my little mop brush and then just soften this up just a little bit. And I might have to go back in with my burnt sienna. I think it wasn't dry and I lost a little bit of my color there. Okay. So now I want to add a little bit of highlight to the hat in the left side of the Santa. So all I did was I used warm white. Okay, and I went from the top here just to the side. You can leave a little bit of an edge there. Okay, and then here, went from the top here, walk it down. And I didn't go all the way down. I turned my chisel edge right here so it stops to the leg. Okay, so you can just soften this up. Okay. Now the arms are done after you base coat the cookies. It's a lot easier than going all the way around here. And my little Santa. Here, I'll have the picture. There's a little bit of a glare because I put a varnish on it. I should have did it the varnish afterwards. But if I lift this up, maybe there won't be much of a glare. Not like this. Let me put a bottle of paint back there. That way you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So now I want to just retouch up my my nose there. I lost a little bit of my burnt sienna on the bottom of my nose. And I always like to do like the eyes, the dot on the eyes last, the dot on the cookies last, because they take a long time to dry. And what happens is you put your hand on top of it and then it just makes a mess and it smudges, and then you're not realizing you had put your hand in it. So dots, just a suggestion, I do them last. Okay, so I'm just want to retouch with burnt sienna here. Go back to the side here. Make it a little bit brighter. There. And touch it up. Okay. So now we can move on to the little hat brim here. So I base coated that with neutral gray. And then when you add the second coat, okay, we're going to add a second coat, neutral gray. I'm going to use my round brush here. Okay. So while the second coat is wet, that's where you're going to stipple the fur on his hat. So for that step, I use a Deerfoot brush. Okay, and you use it dry. And we're going to use warm white for the fur. So I have this dry. I'm going to load my paint on the tip of the Deerfoot. Okay, and so I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. I'm going to dab, and I'm adding pressure so that the bristles open up. So I stipple on my palette, and then I'm going to work from the top, working downwards, and I'm going to add pressure to this all the way around. Okay, and if I need to add a little bit more paint, then I'll add a little bit more just to make it brighter. Turn your brush around. When you get to this side here, you just turn as you pounce. So I'm going to add a little bit more just to make it a little bit more brighter. So back here, so always start from the top and work downwards. And I leave a little edge without the fur so that it looks like shading when you're done. Okay, so that's it for the fur. Wipe my brush. Okay, so now we can do the hair and the beard, mustache and beard. So the first thing that we're going to do is float at the bottom of the hair, along the top of the mustache, under the mustache, and along the beard a little bit with neutral gray. Okay, so just add a little bit of color when you're adding some C-stroke, and it could be messy. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to go over it with some warm white hair-like strokes. Okay, right here. Okay, and then for the mustache, if you feel more comfortable tracing on the lines, you can. Just move it. So I made it like a little stroke where the mouth is going to go here. So for the bottom, just a little bit of messy floats there. Okay. Okay, let's dry that off so that we can add hairlines. Okay, and for that I used the extra long detail micron by Dynasty, and it's a 5-0. So what I'm going to do is I like to put on my bristle, and this is extender, and I'm not going to take it out. I'm going to leave some in here. So what I like to do is take my warm white, and I'm going to make a puddle. So instead of using water, you're going to use the extender, and you fully load your brush here to the tip. Oops. And then roll the tip on the palette so you have a nice point. So what I do for the hair, you're going to start from the tip here and just stroke in the hair. Just little strokes. So you're going to have to keep loading your brush here. I don't think I have enough extender or paint on my palette. Okay, so just with your wrist, you're flicking your hand. Okay, I need a little bit more paint. This is not going long ways here. Okay, reload my brush. Has to be really inky, okay? So there we go. And we can, when it dries, you can go back in with the white to make it more brighter. So when I get to the end, just add little strokes here. Okay, so we'll go back in after and add a little bit more white. Okay, for the beard. Okay, so you're going to start at the bottom, and you're going to flick your wrist constantly. You're going to go this way, that way, little sections. So I start from the bottom, just flicking my brush. Okay. You can add long strokes too, little strokes for smaller hair. Keep loading. When you get to the side here, you're going to go on top. Add a little bit more extender. So I keep going on top of layers after layers. When you're happy with the one layer, just move on to the next. Okay, and here, maybe I'll go the other way. You can flip it. And you can go over where the mouth is going to go because we're going to paint over it. Okay, add little small hairlines. Okay, sometimes you can turn it towards you, might be a little bit better. So I do little strokes. I'm going to turn this just a little bit more from my edge here. Again, we can go over it and add a little bit brighter white on top of it. Okay, so if you're happy with that, then you move on to the mustache. So the mustache, I'm gonna just turn it towards me a little bit. So I like to start from the tip and then work towards the nose, okay? So upwards, get some on his cheeks because he has hair on his cheeks. And you can add little tiny strokes. Always keep your hand upwards, okay? Okay, I'm going to turn this around just so I can get this one here. Okay, again, I'm going to start from the tip. Oops, I need a little bit more extender on here. Okay. I think I need a little bit right here. It's dark. Cute. Okay. You can see it. I think it needs a little bit more flip here though. Alrighty. Okay, now for the little mouth, I have black and Tuscan red for the lips. Add a little bit of black here. Tuscan red. Okay, always check your bottles before opening them. Mix it well. Okay, I can use my little liner here just because it's small. So I go like, it's almost going to be like a little pie shape. So I go from the center of his nose and the mustache. Just do a little pie. And then I'm going to take the same liner. I'm going to dip in my Tuscan red. And I'm just going to draw like a little line at the bottom here. And there you have your little lip. And I just went a little over too much here. Okay. It's looking like a little Santa. So again, I do the eyes last, okay? So for the stocking, I used mistletoe for the little line here. Mistletoe. Only need a little drop. And I use my long detail brush. So loaded. And then I just did two little strokes, depending on how wide you're doing it. Here I have enough room to do 3. Okay, so let's work on the cookie. Okay, so I painted this with cocoa, the cocoa color. And we're going to dry brush the center with yellow ochre. And you need a dry brush and paper towel. I'm going to put my paper towel here. Okay, so I'll show you how to dry brush. Move this over a little bit. So for dry brushing, I'm going to use my number 8 decorator dry brush. It's a 200 series, and you always use these dry. So I'm going to load my bristles with yellow ochre. Okay, fully loaded. Then I'm wiping it on paper towel. Oops. I'm going to wipe it on paper towel as much as I can. Always get the sides too, okay? Because you're not going to get a nice dry brush if you have paint on the side here. So adding pressure, going in circular motion, keeping your brush straight up. You're going to dry brush the center. And what I like about this slate, it's got different layers. So your dry brushing will be like a little different texture. It's really cool. So you have like a different shades of dry brushing on here. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of white on here. Okay, I'm just toning it down. Okay, so you can keep your brush dirty. Okay, we're going to pick up some warm white. Again, I'm going to load my bristles. Okay, I'm going to load the bristle with warm white. And then I'm wiping it as much as I can on my paper towel. Again, make sure you get the sides, okay? Okay, so let's go over this yellow ochre with some white. There. Okay, that'll tone down once we put some floats around the cookie. Okay, and the float around the cookie is done with burnt sienna. And I'm going to use a wider shader. You can use a number 8, you can use a number 10. Okay, and I'm going to wet it. I'm going to apply extender to my bristles. Okay, I'm going to load with burnt sienna. Okay, and I can start over here. And again, you can use your mop brush just to tone down the floats. Okay, and keep going around. Walk it out a little bit there. I have a lot of extender in my bristles. Okay. Pick up some more burnt sienna. And here I picked up a little bit of the other side here. You can darken the floats if needed. Okay, I'm do over here. And one more side. There. Okay, we'll let that dry and we can add a second little float if we need to. Okay, so while that dries, we can add our little stripes on candy canes, and that's done with cherry red. Okay, so I want to give you a little tip about you know, sometimes you have a hard time doing circles or some straight lines. So this is a stencil I use all the time. It's from Laura's Spelt, and it's called background, like circles. It's for background base coats. So you have different sizes here. I really like this. So, you know, what I did was I took half of it, I put a piece of paper and I stippled the white on it. And so this here, I used a smaller circle. Again, I put paper on it so I don't get any on my star. So like sometimes, you know, you start a little circle and you get a little bit wider and wider. And here, this was a stencil from Studio R12, and it's a line pattern stencil. And so what I did was I placed like here, I stipple warm white to do my candy cane. So that's a good tip. I really like that. Okay, so let's do our stripes. We'll use cherry red. You can use Tuscan red if you want, instead of using two different reds. So these are base coated with warm white. And what I did for the round candies, I used my round brush. Okay, and I'm going to show you for the center. I did this so that I know what to use, and I need a little piece of paper. I'll just use paper towel, or you can use painter's tape. Let's just so I can do my center. I'm going to show you what I did. So I put painter's tape on each little end. Okay. So I took this one here. I hole punched these myself for so I can put it in a binder. So I tried putting in the center the round one here, and I'm gonna just apply some cherry red to make my circle. Okay, and you might have to fix it a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for here, but right here. And I'm not fully loading it because I don't want a big blob when I take this off. Okay. And then for like the little stripes here, so I added one here. So you can trace on your lines if you want. So you'll have to add another coat of red on here. Okay. Oh, I can take this off now. A little bit went on here. Oops. So add like a little arch to your stripes to make it look like it's circle or half a circle. Okay, and at the bottom here. So we have like an imaginary line here where the candy is going to come down. So you have to make sure you're not going to go over it. Okay, so I did a little piece here, like that, and then a little arch here. and then one down here. Okay, so we're going to add a second color to this, or second coat, I should say. And then I add like a glitter paint to it, the red. So I can take this one off as well. So I can paint a little closer to the edge. The paint dries fast if you have a thin layer. Okay, so there's my stripes for the round candies. And I do the stripes on the candy cane. I use the shade of brush, and I use the number 6. Okay, so wet your bristles, and don't overload your bristles with paint, because then you're gonna have big blobs when you you add your stripes. So just lightly load your bristles on both sides. Okay, don't overload them. So then I just I didn't transfer my lines. I just went from here, and you put like an arch. Okay, so you add an arch. I'm going to add a little bit of extender to it, just to make it drag a little bit more. Okay, so then I leave a little space, and I added a little arch. Okay, so it's best to add a little bit, add more to it if needed, than having like a big blob. Okay, and then we'll add a second coat to it as well. Okay, so there's the first one. Let me do this here. Don't add too much pressure, just lightly walk it. When you get to here, you may have to maneuver the tip of your brush to make your circle there. Okay, so there's the first coat for those ones. I'm going to add a second one there. Just going to dry it a little bit. This one here must have had a lot of water in there. Okay, so let's do a second coat. Okay, so just follow the first layer. Okay, you can add little green lines in between them too. I didn't think of that. We can do it on this one if you'd like. Okay, so let's add some little green lines in between the candy cane just to see what the difference color would be. I'm going to load my extra long detail. I'm just going to use the mistletoe that I have on here. So again, I have extender in my bristles. Let me just add. Okay, so from the edge here, without touching my paint, Okay. This one here. So from the middle of the white down. Okay, and then here we can add it in between. Not adding pressure, I'm making a fine little line here. There. I'm gonna let that dry. So I'm gonna go back to the cookie. I just want to float over this little side here. I find it's not dark enough. So I'm gonna pick up my shader and float a little bit more. Let's see, and I've got paint on my hands. Okay, yeah, I find this is not dark enough. I just want to go over it. A bit here. Okay, there. Just soften it up a little bit. Okay, we can add, while those dry, let's add some icing to the cookie. And for that, I used warm white, and this is Decor Pearlizing Medium. So you can mix this. It's like a sparkly glitter in here. So it's got glitter. So you can mix this with paint, or you can leave it just like that. So it's like a little silver dot. Let me just see what it's like without adding paint, because sometimes it's too clear that you're not going to see it. So I just want to try this little section here. So it's a little bit more silvery, but you can't really, when it dries, you might not be able to see it. So I want to wipe that off, and I'm going to mix it with some white. It's too transparent. Okay, so I'm going to add a drop of warm white. I'm going to take my palette. You can just do 1 and 1. Okay. If I can get a drop. And I'm going to take a palette knife. It seems like I've got it upstairs. Okay, so just mix it together. And it'll be a little bit more white, but with some glitter in it, okay? There, that's better. Okay, so that's my little mix. Okay, so put up, and you can do this icing freehand, or if you feel more comfortable, you can trace it on. So let's just, what you do is just wiggle your brush, not adding pressure to it. Okay, so on this side here. Okay. I turn my piece around. Make sure I don't touch any wet paint. And you can go, like, see how this went thicker and this went a little lighter. I can go over that just to make it a little thicker. There, like that. Okay, a little bit more. Again, I'm going to do my dots last when we're all done. I want to go over this little part here, get a little thicker. There, like that. Okay, so there's your icing. Okay, so this is dry. So I added another, it's the sparkles of ruby. So it is with Deco Art Extreme Sheen, and it's ruby, it's metallic. Really pretty, adds a little touch to the candy cane. So shake these really, really good. We could have also did I just realized we could also did the Starts with Emerald, which is also an extreme sheen metallic. Okay, so I'm going to add some on my palette. So again, I'm going to use my round brush for the round candy cane, and use the little shader for the stripes. Okay, so I'm not going to add too much water to my bristles, just because it's a metallic and it's transparent enough. So just go over your red. The thicker you put on this sheen, the more glitter you may have on your red here. So we can add a second coat to it. Here's one. Okay, so there's the round one. Take my shader, the number 6. I'll load it with the sheen and just go over it. Oops, make sure you don't get blobs on the shader. Okay, here, get, oops, I went over my little stripe a bit and clean that up. It's very easy to clean up. Just wipe it. Okay, let's add a second coat. I'm going to just quickly dry it and we'll add a second coat. Just put my finger in there, and it's not quite dry right here. It's starting to shine. I can see my shining on there. We'll add another coat and it'll make it really bright. Okay. Switch to the shader. Oops, I used the wrong size. Okay, I'm going to overload. There. We can let that dry. Let's work on our little hollies for now. So the holly, I base coated this with the forest green, and we're gonna use mistletoe. Oh, sorry. Okay, I base coated with mistletoe, and we're gonna float forest green along the edge in the bottom center, and then we're gonna highlight it with the new color celery shoot. Okay, so let me just add this on. Okay, so I'm going to use my wider shader number 8. Okay, load it. Okay, so I go along my candy here, along the cookie candy. Okay, I'm going to take my mop brush and just soften it up a little bit here. Because it's really watery, I'm using the extender to make it float a lot easier. So let me dry that up. I always like to dry the section before you move on to the next float so that you don't wipe off your first float. Let's wipe that off. Okay, so load again with forest green. So what I did was I floated the bottom of the center vein. Oops, let me put this back up. I floated the center vein. Okay, so I went from the tip here down to the edge, and I worked it out to make it wider at the end. And then I did the opposite. So I made one like go outwards instead of one on top of another. So I'm gonna go from the edge here to the center and walk it out. Okay. So then let's dry that up again. We'll add our highlight. So I use the same brush. We'll highlight it with the celery shoot. Okay. Okay, so for this, what I did was I didn't go right to the end because that's your float. So I went from like the middle, close to the end, the middle, make it wide, walk it out, and then I did the little sharp edge to the end here. Okay. And then you can take the mop brush and soften it up a little bit. Okay, it's just too sharp here. Let's turn that like that. Okay. Here again, turn it. Make it wide at the center. And then turn it again till you get a little sharp edge. And soften that up. So that's the center. So let's dry that up. I like drying my pieces. Okay. So now what I did was I floated along the little edges, okay, with the same color. Probably not as wide, okay. So I did over here, do like little C strokes. Okay, and it could be messy. So I just worked it out. And over here. Okay. Now, what I did was for the veins, I did a mix of warm white and the celery shoot using the long detail. So I'm going to turn this towards me. It's a little easier to do strokes this way. So I'm going to add extender to my bristles. So when I mix the celery green and white, that's my mix of sparkles there. I won't use that one. So I'm going to pick up some white and just mix those two little colors together. Okay, and I make sure that it's a little watery, inky. Okay, so I want to like lightly, I don't want to make it too bright there because that's your float. So try going off the float and go down to the center and then to the edge and make some little veins. You can add 3. I'm not adding pressure. Oh, I need more paint. Okay, and then over here too. Try not to get to the shading area. Work it down. Okay, and then for the side, same color, mix of celery shoot and warm white. So I just, it didn't have to be perfect. I just flicked my little strokes here. Oops, that's went a little too far on that one. I'm not adding a lot of pressure when I do my lines, okay? They're fine lines. There. Okay, and we'll add our berries after. So now we can shade our little candy canes. They're dry. So I use Payne's Gray. And I'm going to use the smaller shaded brush because I don't want my floats to be too wide. I want it to be a little narrower. So I'm going to use the number 6. So for the round candies, I did along the center circle here. Okay. All the way around. It's a little more round. Okay. And you can use your mop brush, soften up your floats. Okay. And then here too, I did along here. And while that dries, let's do the flat one here. Just right across. Oh, I don't have enough water in my brush. You can tell when it drags that you don't have enough water. Just soften that up. I don't want it too dark. I just want to say that you have a float there. And then you're going to go along this edge here. So for the candy cane, it's top and bottom. Okay, so let's go around the top part on that one. It should be a little dry. Okay, I prefer doing this way. Just walk it out. Okay, and then I take my mop brush. I'm going to soften it up. And then I'm going to do the same for there. Okay, right over here. So this candy cane here, it's on top of this circle one. So make sure I'm not touching anything wet. Oops, I got my brush the wrong way here. I'll just reload. Okay. Soften it up. And the same here. See how my lines, my floats aren't that wide? I don't want to hide all my my white.